Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles.
Psalm 23, of course, is what can I say? It is one of the most popular psalms in the liturgy, it's funny because it's not really part of any Jewish liturgy per se. Mm-hmm. It is used for different, things mostly, we know, for a lot for death, dealing with the funerals and Shiva and stuff like that. But still, the same thing, I don't know if it's used in Christian liturgy or not. But, obviously, it is a very emotive and very spiritual type of a psalm. And I think when we get inside of it, we will see that there really is it's a bonding with God on multiple levels. But you'll see. I don't want to go too far. First of all, the psalm. Remember, we talked about framing, how many psalms have something at the beginning and at the end. That's an indication that there's an important concept that the author feels needs to be emphasized at the beginning and at the end. And this psalm has the most important element that creates a frame. And that is God's name is mentioned only twice in the whole psalm, in the first line and in the last line. Okay? And so when I say first line, yes, it is. Right, exactly. After Mizmor LeDavid, that's all part of verse 1. So verse 1, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, and the last one, Shavti beveit Adonai l'orech yamim. So that is it's an indication, even though God's name is not used, throughout the psalm, as we've seen in others, right, where names multiple times, different names of God have appeared. But the fact that it's placed where it is, and then of course, as you see, as we go through, the notion that the author has a very powerful feeling of being close to God and being cared for by God is here, and it's not qualified. Remember, in other psalms we saw where somebody will make a statement of faith and then come back and ask questions, right, and express pain, even as they proclaim faith. So here, there's no such. Well, you'll see it exudes a sense of relationship with God, and there's an interesting place in the middle where there is a nice transitional thing that you will see, which sort of highlights this, and it belongs more. It's not exactly in the middle because it's an even number, so there is no middle, standalone verse. There's only 6 verses. So this is verse 4 and 5, as you will see in just a minute. Okay, so Adonai ro'i lo echsar. So Adonai is my shepherd, and I shall not want. Okay, I'm not chaser anything. I'm not missing anything. All my needs are met by God. All right?
But it's an interesting metaphor, the one of shepherd, because
I was just getting to that, Bert.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
Did you see my notes, you sneaky guy? Do you have a camera up there on the wall? Okay. Yes, God is my ro'eh. All right, and it is not, it's used at different times, but it is indeed not a common usage. But ro'eh, has, whether it is explicit or implicit, has a powerful meaning in biblical tradition. Just as an example, and I mean, you see it in a lot of prophets and in other psalms, but yes, it is a very pronounced concept. But if you consider ancient Israelite culture, it makes sense, because shepherding was a major part of Israelite economy and society in the biblical period. And so it has meaning. And of course, the concept of the shepherd is one that evokes care and love, compassion, and even willing to defend.
Boundaries.
Huh?
Boundaries. The shepherd creates boundaries around the sheep, and the sheep are free to wander within those boundaries.
Yes, that's true. But it's all but on the other hand, shepherds take their sheep all over the place. We talked about that, I think, last time.
Yeah.
That's why in rabbinic times, shepherds were not so well loved, because they used to impinge upon the grass that cow people wanted for theirs. And we remember that the sheep really eat it down to the ground. And so literally there's nothing left and nothing grows back. So anyway, but that's a different subject. I see your hand, Tybal. Just a second. I want to finish a thought here. So, but I want you to think for a moment, I'm thinking of 3 individuals who were significant personalities in the biblical traditions who were shepherds. 3.
David.
David.
Moshe. For his father-in-law's sheep.
Moses.
And Moshe.
That's Moshe. That's
what Bobby said.
I just said.
Yaakov.
David,
Israel was a shepherd.
And Moses.
And David.
Who?
Oh, we said
David.
that.
We said David. I said it up front.
Yeah.
Said it already.
I think Akiva was a shepherd.
Akiva is after biblical.
Moses.
No, I'm talking Bible.
David and Yaakov.
Yes, Yaakov. Remember, Yaakov was an expert at sheep breeding.
He made those little rods, right?
Yep.
He knew about genetics before Mendel.
That's right.
Practical genetics.
Yeah. And Moses, not only, the story of having to climb up after the sheep, he was a dedicated shepherd caring for that lamb that was up in the hills. Of course, that leads him to the burning bush.
Well, that's what he did while he was waiting to get his wife.
Well, no, but
but
that was after they were married. He was working for her father-in-law as a shepherd.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He built up while he was waiting between wife 1 and wife 2. He was
talking Jacob. I was talking about Moses.
Oh no, I'm talking Jacob.
Right.
He was building up the flocks and making big, huge flocks.
Well, actually, he developed his own after he was married to the 2 women.
Yeah.
That all comes later. But beforehand, he was a shepherd for his father. Yeah. And, yeah. But anyways, think about who these people are, right? Jacob is the, Bnei Yisrael, right? Moshe Rabbeinu. And David, the forerunner of the messianic, whole messianic concept. So, so you have God being a shepherd. So he's the super shepherd. But it's not a big leap in that direction once you have this concept that a shepherd, represents a certain mixture of qualities that is something worthy of note.
Right. Those qualities are what is so important. I mean, the protectiveness and the caring.
Yes, exactly. Sure.
Yeah, and the caring for everyone, not just.
Right. Well, the whole point is that these are people who, I mean, look, Jacob, you can question Jacob and David more than Moses have certain character traits that we're not so proud of, but had nothing to do with being. See, they did not sufficiently carry over their shepherding traits into their personal lives, right? David and Jacob had a lot of problems with their families. I mean, and that's clear in the stories about them. So that's a different thing. But the point is, though, that the concept, I'm talking about here of the concept, so that God should be defined as shepherd, makes sense. Makes sense. That's my point. All right. Anyway, so therefore, he'll take care. He takes care of everything for me. He takes care of everything. All right. Now, however, okay, Tybal.
So, and Barbara asked this question, and when she asked the question, I had always made this assumption, having grown up around Christians, no, not Jews in the same way, that that the reason why this psalm is so well known and prominent is because America is so Christian, and with supersessionism, David is seen as a stand-in for Jesus.
Of course.
Really?
As a descendant. Pardon me?
Yes.
So I thought that was why this was so popular. It's not so much Jewish. It's like, the way Jews who you would think would know with Hollywood vows for better, for worse, for richer, for poor. And it's like, hello, we think divorce is okay. That was the Roman Catholics that say, no, that's not really a Jewish vow. I thought that's the reason why Psalm 23 was such a big deal, was the Christian.
I don't know. I mean,
and the shepherd part of it. Jesus is a shepherd.
Yeah, no, but I've never traced, when the 23rd Psalm became a very significant element in Jewish, belief. But I don't know that it necessarily has something to do. It could, but I've studied too much to look. The direct lines of influence are not always easy to find. Okay.
Yeah.
It's impossible to make a hard and fast judgment based upon that. So I'm not going to go there, but I will agree with you that it plays similar roles in both religious cultures. Yes, that's for sure. But here's another thing. So if God, and then notice what it says, God is my shepherd, right? Yeah. Not ours, right? He's not talking. This is totally first person. I'm not first person, but he is speaking about himself and his relationship with God.
Actually, it's kind of interesting, the fact that if David did write this, which some people believe that he wrote most of the Psalms,
yeah,
he was a shepherd himself before he became king. If
right.
He's went into talking about God being his shepherd to help him lead the people in a way.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why his name was associated with this. But David's name, of course, is associated with all kinds of Psalms.
Right.
So,
I said most of them, I heard.
Yeah. I don't know most. No. Lots.
No?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's a majority. He may have the largest single association. Yes. Yeah, but I don't even know if it's half. I looked it up recently, and I was surprised to find it was less than half of the Psalms. But
really? I thought it was more.
But there's no question that pops up more frequently than anything else. Yes. But here's the thing. So he then views himself as a what?
The sheep.
A sheep.
Right.
He is a sheep. Doesn't say anything about that. But as you will see shortly, the description of what God does is very much in terms of how a sheep is treated by the shepherd. So there's no question he associates himself as a sheep. And you should know that the association of an individual person as a sheep of God is very, very rare. Okay? All right? Or even in any way as a sheep. Okay? But very often they are in situations where God is involved. All right? But the fact that humans use that as a metaphor for themselves is very rare. So I'll give you a couple of examples. There are actually three, and I'm sorry to say one I forgot, but I remembered two of the others. Three references where you have a clear statement that the person is the se, and is in some fashion God is associated with that se, okay, with that sheep. All right. So the first one is here, but here, of course, the word se is not mentioned, right? You don't have that term, se, sheep, not here. But the illusion is clear. I'm talking about places, though, where the actual word se is found. So one of them is Psalm 119, which we did not read, but it's the longest psalm. I think we talked about this at the very beginning of the course in the spring. That has 176 verses. Okay, it has 6 verses for the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, 6 for each one. And the last one, the author says, I am your se, I am the se, and I put my faith in you, my shepherd. Okay? So there you have the concept of the human being viewing himself as a sheep who is protected by God and has a special relationship with God. That's one. Another one, though, and this Bible moves back into the direction where you were headed before, and you'll see why in a second. The term se, who goes to tevach, which means slaughtering. Okay, there is a statement in the prophet Isaiah, chapter 53, where the author refers to the servant of God as a se latebeth yuval, a sheep who is being brought to the slaughter. Okay? That's Isaiah 53, verse 7. Okay? So why is that such an important psalm? Anybody know? Psalm 50, Isaiah 53?
I believe Christians use Isaiah many times to justify a prediction that Jesus will come. But I don't.
Yes, not only are you right, but this is a real biggie, because the psalm mentions that it implies that statement I just read, that he's being brought to the slaughter. Okay, it doesn't say. Well, anyway, his suffering. It doesn't say, and Jesus was killed. I'm sorry, and the servant was killed. It doesn't say that, but it alludes to that. So but that became for the gospel as a paradigm for Jesus. Okay, so he is a sheep that is brought to the slaughter. All right, so that's the second one. And the third one, I forgot, it's in one of the prophets. But you have another, and that, by the way, it's interesting. The Psalms I think I mentioned this once before, the Psalms that precede and follow Isaiah 53 are the Psalms that are said between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah. They're the Psalms of consolation. Okay? But that is not there because there's no consolation in it. And the rabbinic tradition actually made writ large by Rashi's commentary, which opened the door to a whole new interpretation of that psalm. That psalm was interpreted by Jews, that the servant of God is in fact the Jewish people. And we have served as sacrifice, as it were, for the sins of others. Because that's what it sort of says. He bore our guilt. That's that, and that became very popular in the Middle Ages, down into the modern period. Very popular Jewish response to the Christian interpretation of it. In fact, there, I think, Tybal, it was probably motivated clearly by the intensification of the image of the suffering Jesus that emerged right in the Middle Ages. And so I think there may be a direct link. I have a paper on that, actually, one of my first papers published on Isaiah 53, and tracing how many of the subsequent commentators use that as their interpretation of it. Yeah.
Would we be able to get that paper? I would love to see it.
Well, you can, I believe. It's published in the Harvard, Theological, by the School of Jewish Theology of Harvard University, the School of Theology, Harvard. I forgot the name of it. Anyway, yeah.
Harvard Divinity School.
Thank you, Harvard School of Divinity, right? But it's their journal.
It's called. I just found it. I found it in JSTOR. It's called the Harvard Theological Review, Volume 75, Number 3, July 1982, published by Cambridge University Press. Is that the right one?
What's the title?
The Development of a Jewish Exegetical Tradition Regarding Isaiah 53.
Whoa.
If it is, because lots of people through their universities, alumni have links, can get into JSTOR. I'll put the JSTOR link in.
No, I get people use that all the time. I get notifications from academia, which is another one of these organizations that publishes, papers and books and so forth. So it happens. A lot of people look at that. Yeah. Anyway, so there you have specifically the seh. However, tell me you can figure this out. A story in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, where a reference is made to a seh, and even though it's not directly connected because there was no seh, but it is associated with a single human being.
Well, that's David.
Akeda. Isn't it the Akeda?
Nathan.
It's the Akeda.
Nathan.
The binding of Isaac.
Oh.
As they're going up the mountain, Isaac asks, where Ephod Haseh?
Yeah.
For the sacrifice.
Oh.
God says, the seh, God will see to it. So it's in chapter, the 2 consecutive verses in that chapter that the word seh appears. Now that's not talking directly about any human being, but of course, in Abraham's mind, it's an allusion to whom? To Isaac. Okay? To Isaac. And that, by the way, that the binding of Isaac is also seen in Christian tradition as being a forerunner of Jesus. Right? Bound, sacrificed, right? And there is, interestingly, a midrashic tradition that actually the knife did its job, believe it or not, that Isaac was cut by the knife, and the angels cried, and their tears healed him. Okay? But he was temporarily dead.
Whoa.
And that emerged, some say, after the Bar Kokhba revolt, because many Jews died because they were Jews.
Was that a response to the blood libel, perhaps?
Yes, right. Yeah, it was. Yes, it's mentioned. Oh, that's interesting because I see your hand, Tybalt. There is a poetic expression of the martyrdom of Jews in the First Crusade, in the two of the three big Jewish communities along the Rhineland, and this is Mainz in particular, the town of Mainz, and the author has the mothers of the children who were killed, sometimes by their own parents, because they did not want them to get the Christians to get a hand on them and convert them. But the fact that the children were killed, these mothers are yelling up to God, they're Isaac. Who's Isaac? One child was killed. But in our town, dozens, maybe hundreds were killed. So who cares about Isaac? You want to see an Akedah? This is it. Yeah, so it was a Jewish response that these children were martyrs. Now, whether the notion of their dying for the sins of others carried on, I don't know. Probably not. But anyway, but that allusion in the Akedah also, it's interesting. It's a seh. There is one instance where Am Yisrael is called a seh, the whole people. But I'm not talking about that because that's not one person. Anyway, getting back to this, I see your hand, Tybalt. The bottom line is, though, so the allusion here that the author, the writer of the psalm, be it David or anybody else, sees himself as a seh. It has a very narrow, similarity to other verses, very, very rare in the Torah, in the Bible, very rare in the Bible.
Rabbi,
Tybalt, just her hand was up, just to hold
okay.
on.
You said something, and I may not have heard correctly. I thought you said something about the Psalms of consolation between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, and I know about the 7 Haftarot, but I've never heard of the 7 Psalms of consolation.
Oh, did I say Psalms?
You did.
Oh, they were. No, the Haftarot, right, exactly, but they're all Psalms.
Oh, even though they're not in the book of Psalms, it's a wider usage of Psalms?
They are. What is not?
They're from the prophets.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, they're not Psalms. They're from Isaiah. You're right. I meant from Isaiah. Thank you. That was a slip. Right. I'm so into Psalms. That's right. No, those are from Isaiah in the 50s, the chapters in the 50s. Right. They're not Psalms. That's correct. Thank you. You're sure.
I was wondering one other allusion to a lamb, to a seh. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the prophet, Nathan, in order to rebuke David for his actions with Bathsheba, says something about that a person has one sheep, and you took away that lamb from him.
That's very interesting. Yes, I didn't think of that. You're right. But I don't know, does he say seh? That's the word I was looking for, and I'm not sure it was there. But you're correct in the sense that he uses that as a metaphor.
Right.
For having killed, what's his name? Yeah.
Uriah was the one who was killed, but he took Bathsheba from Uriah.
Yeah, of course, right.
Yeah, so the Bathsheba would be the one that's the seh, if that was mentioned.
She would be the one who lost the seh.
Well, she would be the seh, wouldn't she?
Oh, no, her husband was, because he died.
Yeah.
He took the seh away from the shepherd. I think that's what it said.
I don't think it's a seh. It's a different Hebrew word, I think, it's translated as little ewe lamb.
Ewe lamb. And the ewe lamb would be Bathsheba because In order to take her away from Uriah, he had to kill Uriah first.
Oh, you're right. He didn't kill. That's right. You're right. The seh was taken away, or the kivsa. That is correct. Yes.
Kivsa, Ken. That was the name that he used.
I think that's the term, right?
So,
Yes, it's kivsa in the Hebrew.
But it's an allusion. I got it. Yes. Very good. Thank you. Gabriella, good for you.
Oh.
You get 5 points.
That means more than $1 million. 4 points from you, Rabbi Rembaum.
Yes, exactly. Right. All right. Anyway, so the shepherd. See, we're still on the first verse. I told you guys we were not going to get. I hope we finished it.
That's okay. It was in a rush.
Moving on. Okay. So binaot desha yarbitseni. Right. Now this is what a good shepherd would do. Right. So he naot desha is very interesting. Different interpretations of it. I like the one that comes out of the dictionary, actually. Naot desha would be a pasture filled with grass. Okay, a pasture filled with grass. That's from the Curler Baumgartner.
Now here I have in lush.
Here he says he makes me lie down in green pastures.
Right.
Or has me lie down.
Okay.
I prefer has me. He's not making him. He's helping him.
But the word na'eh in Hebrew is yafeh.
Yeah, but this is not. It's not na'eh. It's na'ah. Or na'ah. Yeah, but this is na'eh is an adjective.
I mean the root na'eh is yafeh.
This is a noun. Yes, na'eh. Right. But it actually means a pasture.
Yeah, a beautiful or gorgeous pasture.
But it says desha. Binaot desha. Desha is grass.
Yeah, right.
So it's a grass.
Lawn. Could be a
lawn. Yeah.
A lawn, yeah.
If you're a sheep, right? If you're a sheep, this is good for you.
Right.
If you're tired and you're gonna lahar beats means to lie down.
Right.
In this context, it's the Hifil form. All right.
Yeah, in my book, it says, "In grass meadows, he makes me lie down." Which is
that's good. But I prefer Benji Siegel's on this. He has me lie down, not make, because make is coercive.
It says as I said, in lush meadows, he lays me down.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be the sheep would be passive, and the one who lays them down is the shepherd.
Right.
Yes.
So that's God. Right. Again, but it's an allusion to rest. Right. But it's an allusion to food. Right. Sustenance. Yes. So it's an allusion both to rest and to food. Then he says, Al meimenuchot yinahaleni. Okay, so he leads me by quiet waters.
Right.
Right. I mean, again, water can be destructive, scary, chaotic, or it can be something that you can drink. And obviously, quiet waters means it's non-threatening. When you're thirsty, you can be very comfortable in getting a drink.
Mm-hmm.
It does is it creates an idyllic situation for a tired sheep who wants to eat and rest and drink. And so this is the shepherd taking care of his sheep, caring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coercion here. That's the point. There's no forcing. God provides. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Provides. And that's very, very poignant, and it's the metaphor. It hits home with the metaphor, because you can imagine a sheep. You just put it's a picture in words that you can really understand and appreciate. Mm-hmm. Okay? All right, moving on, verse 3. Let me see if there's anything I want. That's it. All right. So, Nafshi Shovev. So the translations here are, he renews my soul, or he renews my life. JPS says life, and Benji Siegel says my soul.
Nefesh is the soul.
I mean, I can understand, life, but the point is, what it really is saying is that he, excuse me one second, that he's reviving or renewing the soul of the animal, because the point, what is the soul? The soul, yes, it is the place where you have it's the energy, the power of breath, but it's soul really captures the, shall we say, theological concept of what's going on here, rather than life. Right? The end result is that his life is renewed. Yeah. But it's much more powerful, I think, to use it, to understand it as soul. Right? Because what is, God blew into Adam's nose, right? He blew nefesh chaya. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's that dynamic activating force, and then yes, the result of that is a renewed life. But it doesn't mean that that he was dying. It means he's energized. It means he's stronger, because there's no instance here where the sheep was feeling near death, and that's why to say, to talk about life particularly.
Right.
Revive, you can strengthen the soul. Okay, who has hands?
I was just going to say, following what you said at the beginning, really this whole psalm is all about God and the spirit, and not at all about the physicality of the body.
Yes. Although, well, you'll see in a moment, except for the sitting down for dinner. Okay? I mean, we'll see. It's borderline. All right? Soul definitely is a spiritual concept. But sitting down at a table to eat is a little bit more concrete. It's a metaphor, though, right? It's a metaphor. And in a sense, lying down, so here, right, but the thing is here, the soul, the spirituality is associated directly, okay? And then it continues, right? Excuse me.
It's not talking about physical repose here.
No.
This is repose of the soul, like Shabbat.
In a sense, yes. But again, he's using the physical, although you don't know. I mean, it's interesting, because you could say that he's talking about spiritual refreshment, but on the other hand, you could say that he's actually saying that God is responsible for my physical well-being. And this could all be a metaphor for his concern for maybe both the soul and the body. Because when you think of a green pasture, that's eating, right?
But that's beauty too. It's beautiful and lush.
Yes, of course, but that's physical,
right?
I mean, it's a very powerful physical image. But at the same time, beauty, I mean, if you want, I see your hand, Barbara, just a second. I mean, beauty has a spirituality to it. It's an aesthetic perspective, and that's non-material, right? So, I mean, that's the beauty of this. It operates on so many different levels simultaneously. I would say, I'm sounding like Held. That's right, and this is right.
That's the tradition. That's the tradition.
All right.
That old joke with the tradition.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Okay, Barbara.
When I read the second line and he lies down in green pastures, he could be getting sick and dying, but he gets to water, which is helpful even when you're dying. And then the soul, he renews the soul. Well, the soul is what God takes out and the body goes into the ground. So in
Yeah.
a way, I've always kind of felt this was maybe the reason that this was used at funerals, is because God is taking the soul.
Yes, that's correct. And that's how that can be interpreted. Absolutely. Right. But I don't think there's no reference here to death.
I know. I'm just making it up.
Oh, but I think you're right in the sense that this is, you could easily extract what you're saying from this in terms of, and the renewal of the soul would be in heaven.
Yeah.
In the afterlife.
That's what I'm just going to go fix the lights.
Exactly. And look, it depends also upon which cemetery you're buried in. You know, if you go to Hillside, if you go to Mount Sinai, you are buried among, in green grass. But if you go to some of them in East LA, it's all cement. So where's the green grass?
In Israel,
Well, you can be both. There's a lot of concrete in Israel.
Yeah.
A lot of concrete. All right, anyhow. Now, but here, Yancheni b'ma'alei tzedek. Okay. He leads me on a path of tzedek. So here, I must say, I disagree with Benji Siegel. I disagree with Benji Siegel, and I agree with JPS. He guides me in right paths, R-I-G-H-T, because tzedek means that. It's not righteousness here. I checked it up in the dictionary, and the authors of the dictionary suggest that tzedek is used elsewhere. Example, when you talk about weights and measures in the Torah, in Vayikra, Parshat Kedoshim. Sound familiar, Leon? Right?
Yes.
Honest scales, right? And the word tzedek is the word that's used for it. They're right. They're proper. It has nothing to do directly with righteousness. It means that they are proper scales, balanced, all right? And that's more what you have here. It means a firm ma'agal, in this case is not a circle. It means a firm path, right? In other words, a clearly defined path. And he leads me on these paths, which are the proper paths, right? He makes sure that I don't go off the path, right? And that's for his name's sake, meaning he wants to show the world that he is a caring God by virtue of the fact that he makes sure that I stay on the true path. Now you can see this as, again, the sheep, right? And we'll see the next line. The next line is related to this, okay? For sure it's the next line, really, all right? But I want to make an observation here. I want to suggest that nafshi yeshovev, the first two words of verse 3, should actually be the last two words of verse 2. Look at it. He restores my soul. He revives my soul. He doesn't revive my soul by walking me on a straight path. He revives my soul by putting me down and resting me where in the green pasture, right, the grassy pasture, and by the water. Nafshi yeshovev should be the end of verse 2. And then verse 3 should begin, Yancheni b'ma'alei tzedek. He makes me walk on the right path.
Of course, the verses were laid out later. This wasn't written with verses.
And the verses were, yes. And the Masoretes did it. The Christians did it. Okay. And I think that unless somebody wants to, try, I'm not sure why that happened. It's so natural, Nafshi yeshovev. It's what precedes it. So that's my emendation to the Bible. All right. My every week I move dots around for this.
We'll have to print up a whole bunch of new Bibles.
Yeah, I'll take care of it. Now, so but here, all right. So Laman Shmo it's odd that it's dumped in right there. It seems to be just plunked in. But I think the point is, this is it's not the culmination of the metaphor of the sheep. It continues. But I think the whole point is that word tzedek, because it is a charged word of all kinds of meanings. It can mean righteousness. Yes, it can. And it may be that the author chose it because it has so many different meanings. And consequently, by associating it with God's name, what it is saying is that the concept of tzedek, however you want to understand it, is an attribute of God. And so by doing this, he is reminding the world that he is the God of tzedek, of the right thing, of the righteous thing. And it's a divine attribute. And so the way I walk. Now the question is this seen as a possible reference to Torah, right? The path, okay? It's possible that he's alluding to, it's an allusion here. If he's a human being now, walking on the path, and we know that that's used in certain instances for that purpose. So again, great poetry, multiple levels of meaning here in terms of what is being said. That's what I think. Okay. And so therefore, that's why Laman Shmo is there, because it was referring to tzedek as an attribute of God. All right. But now, Gam ki elech begeit sal mavet. Yes, even as I walk in a valley of, and here I definitely agree with the JPS, deepest darkness. It's not the shadow of death.
Yeah.
It's not. Salmut has its own meaning. And it's very clear in the dictionary. It means it's almost palpable. It's thick darkness. Okay. And I mean, I'm sure we've all been in thick darkness where there's no light and you just can't see a darn thing. You can almost cut it with a knife. That's what he's talking about. So even if and I think about a sheep, sometimes the sheep meanders. In fact, we know that's probably not uncommon with sheep. That's why you have sheepdogs, right? I mean, I don't know that they had sheepdogs in Eretz Yisrael then, but that's
Probably
what
did.
keep them together, keep them from meandering. That's why Moses had to run up the mountain, because the sheep had meandered. He walked off the right path. And so this must be an allusion to a common phenomenon that happens with sheep. But what does he say? I see your hand. Just a second. Alo irara, I will not fear anything. No harm will come of it, because ata imadi, because you're with me. So even if I meander into this dark place, it could be a canyon, right? It could be a cave. Who knows what? But clearly, it's a scary place. I'm not afraid, because you're going to find you're with me. And he's, to me, that's on the one hand a realistic situation with sheep, but on the other hand, you can understand what that means. If I get into a situation that really is scary, threatening, chaotic, I'm not worried, because ultimately I know God's here. I mean, this is really a very bold statement about having faith in your God. Okay, so that's how I understand this. I think of a deep darkness in the JPS is very, very okay. Who had a hand up?
No.
Bert, Rabbi. Oh no. Okay, Rabbi Bert. Sorry. Yes.
Rabbi Bernstein.
Ordained him earlier before everybody got on. So anyway, okay, moving on. Now, Shivtecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni. Final part of that sentence. Your rod and your staff, they provide me, they are signs that they're comforting to me. Okay, so what is a rod, the shevet? What's the difference between a shevet and a mishenet?
A what?
Well, the rod is what a shepherd uses to push the sheep around.
Right.
And the staff is what the shepherd used like to walk.
To lean on, right.
Yeah, but the image here is that God is guiding us.
Yeah.
Not only is God saving us, but God is guiding us the way a shepherd guides sheep.
That's how he got us back on the path.
Right, of tzedek.
Right? That's how he got us.
Why does God need a rod and staff? Why?
Not the shepherd does.
It's a metaphor.
Shepherd. Metaphor. Remember, the whole thing is a metaphor, Barbara.
I know, but we talked in the beginning that the shepherd was really God.
No. But the metaphor takes, you gotta think metaphorically, poetically, right? You go deep into the metaphor, you use all the symbolism associated with it.
Okay. So you're just throwing out symbolism.
Right. It means that God has the capacity to keep us in the right direction, right? And to be present.
And is not a puppeteer.
And secure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, a shepherd, as Bert said, the rod is used to tap the shepherd. They don't beat him. You tap him and they go back in line properly. He comes out of the valley of deep darkness, right? Back onto the road. But the shepherd uses the staff because he's got to climb into the rocks or go where that was. And he needs it's like a walking stick. Like you climb a mountain, you take sticks with you just to help you get up there. If you're doing it on rocky ways.
In a way, the staff is like the mitzvot. To keep us in line, as it were, on the righteous path.
Well, both. I mean,
in one sense,
the rod keeps us in line, and the staff makes sure that we're stable in line, that we can walk on the path. Even I don't know, but the point is, it's getting the sheep out of trouble, back on the path, and and that's what it is. Okay, Tybal.
So with the rod illusion, and you say it works at all sorts of levels, what do you think it's intended to think about Moshe and what he did with his rod?
Excuse me. Well, there were two. Remember, it's interesting. There was Aaron's rod and Moses' rod, right? And so
yes.
And so I don't know. I mean, the word mishanat, shevet is the one that's used, I think, for both of them. You don't have mishanat for either one, I don't. So it's translated as a staff. Okay. And remember, yes, a shepherd. It must be that in ancient times they had a staff when they had to schlep around, for their. I mean, as I say, it's pragmatic. Whether it's Moses or not, I don't know. Okay, it's a possibility. But remember, I mean, Aaron had a staff also, and he wasn't a shepherd. Well, unless you want to say he shepherded the Levites, the priests, but not the same.
Well, a staff is a symbol.
Oh, excuse me. His word was, that's mateh. Sorry. The term that they use is mateh, mem tet hey.
Oh, mateh.
That's the term that's used. I don't know if shevet is used for either. I didn't check it up. No, it's mateh. That I know. Well, Aaron's thing is called a mateh. No, hold on a second. Give me a moment.
And what is the stick that Moses uses to hit the rock? Is that a different word?
That's clear.
You
heard it in Shul. Kathy Rosenblatt talked about it.
And mateh is what
he used Aaron's staff.
Oh, okay.
The one that had almonds blossoming on it.
That's the one he hit the rock with.
That's the one that God in chapter 7
gave him. Right.
God tells him, put it down in front of the ark.
Mateh.
And the mateh, right.
There's a song about it.
Mateh.
Moshe hika atzur, b'mateh hika atzela.
Right, and it was Aaron's mateh that he took, not his own.
Okay.
It says so. There was no other mateh lying in front of the ark. We don't know what happened. The last time we hear of Moshe's mateh is when he uses that, chapter 16, to hit the rock the first time, which is what God told him to do. But here he takes Aaron's staff, which he was told beforehand he's supposed to show to rebels. Okay, in chapter 17, God says, put Aaron's staff, after the miracle happens that Aaron's staff has blossoms and almonds on it. He says, okay, put that in the tabernacle in front of the ark. And if there is a revolt, take it out and show it to the B'nai Meri, to the Meri, that root, meaning to revolt, to the rebels. Show it to the rebels. It'll remind them of Korach and all that happened, and they'll shut up. So that's what he was supposed to do. Take it out, show it to them, and then talk to the rock. And that's where he blew it. Totally. On multiple counts, unfortunately. All right, now hold on 1 second. I want to go back I'm going to Shmot, chapter 16, and I shall check immediately. Yeah, it's mateh. Kachet matcha. Take your mateh. Right, mateh is the one that's used. Yeah, mateh is used. Not neither one of these, right? Not shevet and not mishenet. No. Okay. All right, but here let's conclude that Hema Yanachamuni, right? They provide me with comfort. Okay, it's interesting because you think about it. The shevet is being used to guide the sheep back onto the path, have them stay with the herd, right, with the flock. And you'd think that would be, they'd be afraid of it. But no, what he's saying is that's a comforting thing to know that I got lost and you used that to get me back on the road. That's comforting because it gets me back. I feel safe now. I'm with the herd. I'm with you, right? So that's why it says it comforts me. Yanachamuni. By the way, keep in it there you have Nacheni, Nachamuni, Menuchot. You see, so he's clustering over here in these descriptions. That chet nun mem nun chet sound. Again, poetry, the use of sounds. It's here as well.
Nachamu ami.
Yep, right, same thing, exactly. Okay, moving on. Now, but here's something very interesting. There's a shift here. In verse 4, up until now, he was talking third person, right? God does this, all right? Not, right? Read what it, right? He does not talk directly to God. He said, God does this for me, God does that for me, etc. Now he says, Lo iraki ata imadi, because you are with me. And I think, and you'll see in the next verse as well, he uses second person. Now he's talking directly to God. And what I think you have here is an intensification of an indication of the intensity of the relationship. Because when you talk in third person, right, you're removed more. Now he's talking directly to God. Okay? You, God, are with me. Okay? And you now have it in verse 5. Ta'aroch lefanai ta'aroch. You set out, right? But that's again second person. You set out for me, before me, shulchan neged tzorarai. Okay? You set out a table for me in the presence, right in front of my tzorarim, my enemies. Who are the enemies? Not me.
Good question.
Yeah. So you can think of all kinds of things. Who are enemies? The sheep's enemies. A lion.
Whoa. Wolves.
Huh?
Wolves.
Wolves. I don't know if they're wolves.
Wolves in sheep's clothing, even more so.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Okay.
Well,
So it could be a sheep, right? It could be somebody wants to steal me.
yeah.
But if we're talking metaphor here, enemies is very broad. It could be family, village, national enemies.
Right. You don't know. What he can say is he's in a situation where I would feel threatened, right?
Where does a lamb not feel threatened?
Well, right here, where I could feel threatened, right? But I'm not. That's the whole point. So basically, he is the table. He is saying, I don't even have to be afraid of potential enemies, right? Because you set this table for me. I can thumb my nose at these people, and they can be grumbling again, and I'm going to sit there, and I'm going to have a nice meal, right? Because what does it say? Not only that, Dishanta Vashem and Roshi, right? Doesn't mean anoint. Dishanta actually means to refresh, okay, in this context, okay, because it can mean other things as well, but it can refer to excrement too. But in this case, it could, it doesn't mean to eat, because the two translations here, you rub my head is what Siegel says, you anoint my head with oil. Anointing doesn't make sense because he's not a king, unless it's David. So anointing, okay, fine. But the fact is, though, the term really in this instance makes perfectly good sense. If he's taking care of me, so he puts nice oil on my head, and I'm assuming, it's got a nice fragrant. Remember, because they used to put spices in the oil and put that on. That was their deodorant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's putting it on here. Imagine somebody's giving you a scalp massage right there in front of your enemy. I mean, come on.
Well, it's a specialness. It's not just that God is a comfort. It's God is making him very special.
Yes, it is. But the fact, look, that's right. The fact, who gets their scalp massaged?
Somebody very special.
Or wealthy.
Or also people in pain.
But he's not in pain.
On the other hand, kings do. And so maybe this is saying you're treating me like a king.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody special.
Yes. Yeah. You're all right. Yes. I mean, it could be pain, but I don't think that's what he's talking about here.
No.
Because kosira vaya, right? I have a full cup. When you have a kos at a table, what do you talk about? Water?
Wine,
of course. That's what I would say. Yeah.
So it makes him feel like a king with a lot of wine.
Yes, exactly. Right? Exactly. Okay. So now, but what you have here now, these two verses where he's speaking in second person, talking directly to God, notice that's the transition from the metaphor to the human, right? A sheep doesn't sit at a table, right? A sheep doesn't get their head oiled, and they don't drink out of a cup. You see, we flipped.
Mm-hmm.
And in both of those sentences, what you have here is he uses the reference to the direct reference, the direct speech to God as a vehicle to transition now from the metaphor to the real person. That's what just happened. Okay. So whereas before it was a lush green field, right? Pasture. Now it's a table fit for a king. That's what's happened. So now we're in real time.
So this drink is not referring to the lake or the river that he got.
No, interesting.
Water.
Very good thought. Very good thought. Up above, right? It was a stream, a river, right?
Well, it's not exactly clear.
Well, right. It's by but it's a natural body.
By water.
It's a body of water, right?
Right.
Peaceful body of water.
It can also mean my cup runneth over, means I am so happy. You talk of a full cup or a half cup, and how do you see your life? And you say, well, I have a full cup. It's a metaphor for being content and very
exactly. Yes, exactly. But I think the notion of drink takes us back before to the metaphor, because that's the sheep, right? The sheep goes and drinks in the body of that quiet body of water. And here, the human is going to drink out of his cup. The sheep will drink mayim, and the man will drink yayin. It doesn't.
But it's happiness. He's drinking happiness as well.
Yes, of course. Yes, sure. But the point is, it's not just happiness, but there's a sense of security, and in the sense that he, whatever the issue was could be frightening, right? Whatever that enemy was, we don't know what it was. The point is, what he ends up saying is, even in a difficult situation, I'm not. It's like being in the dark canyon. I'm not worried. I'm not. You're there all the time, to the point where I can even have an amazingly wonderful experience when there's a potential threat right in front of me, and I don't care about the threat because you're going to make it good. This is the faith that is expressed here. There's nothing God won't do to help this guy. That's what this is saying. And now we're going to go back to third person, right? In verse 6. No, sorry. The second, verse 6. Yeah. Ach tov v'chesed yurdefuni kol yemei chayai. Right? Goodness and loving kindness will pursue me all the days of my life. Okay? Isn't that interesting? That's what's gonna that's my fate. That's what's gonna be all my life. I'm not gonna be chased by wild animals. I'm not gonna be chased by threat. I'm gonna be chased by good things. Good things will follow me. Now go back to verse 3. There, God leads Yancheni, right? God leads him on the proper path, right? Having revived him, all right? Nafshi Shoveh, and so God leads him. Now, once again, he has been, so to speak, revived with his cup of wine, and now the good stuff, these powerful force values, are behind him. So God's got him covered, coming and going, in front and behind. Again, piling on this protection, right? It's got you've got super bodyguards in front of you and behind you. He's untouchable. That's what he
says. I think Rodef,
yes,
the whole idea of pursuit, exactly. Not just I will have these, right. But I will be, in the same way we're supposed to pursue the mitzvot.
Yes.
Not just wait and stand around, but pursuing is very active.
But they are pursuing him.
Right. And now goodness is pursuing him.
And kindness is pursuing him.
Yeah, goodness and kindness from God.
These are things, again, that are associated with God. God is associated with tzedek. But God is also associated with Tov and Chesed. Right? So in a sense, that's a metaphor for God's presence. So God's got him coming and going. Okay? Surrounds him all the days of my life. And then finally, V'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. And I will, shavti, dwell. It could be dwell from yashav.
Sit or dwell.
Also, it could be from the root shavat, which means to cease from labor. I will peacefully be present. I will, what does it mean?
To sit or to dwell.
Huh?
To sit or to dwell, depending upon how you want to translate it.
Yeah, But
You'll sit there and relax.
No, but that's Yoshev, right? That would be the root Yud Shin Vet. But why did the Yud fall off? That's very unusual.
Oh,
okay. But it could be from Shin Vet Taf, I would say, okay, which is, Shabbat.
It's rest.
No, it really means cessation from labor.
Oh.
Associated with rest. Yeah, Shabbat really means, because Vayi Shabbat, all right? Vayishbot Bayom Hashvi'i. Doesn't mean he rested. It means he stopped work.
Okay.
And that's what the word means. So if it's from that, then it means that he rests. Yes, he's resting. It means that he's not pressured. It means it's Shabbos, so to speak, for him. And where is he? In God's house for many, many days, for long periods of time. Okay. Now that's a parallel to Kol Chayai. The question is, how is he? Who lives in the temple if the temple is God's house? Who lives in the temple forever? Priests, assuming there's a temple. That doesn't say he's a priest. I don't know.
Well, did the priests actually live in the temple? I mean, our priests have always been allowed to marry.
No, of course not. I mean, I think what it means is that I will have the ultimate honor of being in God's presence as long as I live. And I think Orach Yamim is parallel to Kol Yimei Chayai. Doesn't mean he's going to live, get up in the morning and say, "Good morning, God, how are you? I slept well. Nice bed you got here." Yeah, it's a little lumpy, but...
Although we are supposed to say that, we are supposed to wake up and say, "God, I slept well." Thank you.
That's right. But that's my point is Beit Adonai doesn't mean the temple, which it could. Mm-hmm. But he has opportunities to show his love of God, to reciprocate to God by offering, by bringing sacrifices, the tithes, and all those things, by being a pious, observant Jew and spending time as much as possible in the temple. I think that's what it's talking about, but not that he lives there, really. All right, first Gabrielle and then Tybal. No, Gabrielle, stop. You're muted. Unmute.
Yeah, it seems that the house of the Lord, meaning that I will, like you say, I will obey the precepts of the Lord forever. I think the house of God means all the structures and the mitzvot that God gives, and not necessarily.
I think by extension, but I think it means, though, in God's presence.
Right, of course.
And you can only be in God's presence if you do what you're saying. Sure, that's assumed. Yeah, but the first level is that he wants to be in God's presence, because that's he wants it to continue. Right, and for that, you're right, for that to continue, he has to fulfill God's Torah, and he's got to participate, actively in what it means to be an Israelite, a full-blown Israelite who follows God's teaching. Yes. All right, Tybal.
Two things, though, I have to say, or maybe the first thing is a little hard for me to think about this line, because whenever I looked at it, I hear Debbie Friedman in my head singing her Shifty song. I don't know if anyone else knows that.
Well, say
I
that.
guess not.
I didn't hear what you say. Repeat.
Debbie Friedman has a beautiful song.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And that's all I can hear. As soon as I saw the phrase, I'm hearing the Shifty song in my head. But when I get past that, what I think this means, I don't think it means the temple. What I think it means is that the person is determined to take the lessons and the comfort and make their own house the kind of a
compost, but I never got to it.
But make their own house the kind of a place that's filled with compassion and not anger, that they're going to, do you know what I'm saying? That they're going to, the same way the dining room table is supposed to be a mikdash ma'at, it's not the altar elsewhere, that you have a choice with how you structure the way you're going to live. So it's saying, taking all this, and this is what my own house will be like. So in other words, it's not that God owns the house, but the house that the person lives in is going to be modeled on what God would want.
Yes, I think that's the way it has ended up. You're right. And that's how I would understand it. Beit Adonai. I mean, some of you heard my sermons. I ask people, where does God live? Where do you find God? So everybody says, in the synagogue.
Now that in your house, you're supposed to.
Everywhere. In your heart.
House.
It's in your heart. You're not a cardiac.
I always add it's in your place of business.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
God's got to be found in your place of business. So the Beit Adonai is all over the place.
Everywhere you are, there's God.
Right. And you should feel God's presence.
Exactly.
And I think Tybal, that this is indeed how, post-biblical times would view this. I think, going back to the original time when this was written, I think that the concept of the home being a Beit Adonai, I don't know that really had developed. Okay? So I'm saying the pshat here, I think, would be seriously in the temple. Or, not that he lives there, but that he spends a lot of time because he wants to be in God's presence. However, I will readily affirm what you said, because you can take a lot of what's here, as you said, the Shulchan, and just the whole concept of what the home can represent to us. In a sense, the home can be, a green pasture. Forget about the backyard, right? You come into the house, it's a place where you find sustenance, and you find quiet, calmness, and all the good things we want to have in our home as a Jewish home. So I agree with you 100% on that as a valid interpretation.
Joel, so why do we end up with this being the thing that we do at funerals? Kind of the last thing before
what you said before.
Oh, you agreed with me. Okay.
Yes, I agreed 100%. Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure. Oh, yes. And when you say, and I will dwell in the house of God, it's heaven. It could be, that's heaven too.
Yeah, right.
Right? That's Beit Adonai too. All the days of my life. And then I will dwell in God's, it could be, you can interpret it to be, and when I die, I will live in eternity in God's
presence.
Heavenly.
I think God's presence will be with me always. I think that's even down here. Yes, wherever I am, God's presence.
Yes, that's right.
Will be with me.
That's the extension, though. I think you're on the same page as Tybal, which means as post-biblical interpretations developed. Remember, the whole concept of diaspora made a major change in how people really define God, right? Because when you start talking about the divine presence being primarily in a temple in Jerusalem, right? And that was the focal point. Actually, prior to that, God's presence was in all kinds of little shrines all over the country where sacrifices were being offered. You got to think biblical here, not rabbinically. Rabbinically speaking, yes, though, was what the rabbis ultimately had to figure out how to understand the fact that there's a huge Jewish population living outside of the Holy Land.
Would you please get it?
How are you living the Holy Land? How do you live in the Holy Land? Outside the Holy Land. You've got to find sanctity in every place you go. So that's ultimately, you can see, it's very interesting. Ezekiel, who actively prophesied in the diaspora, right? Where did he see God? Al Naharot Babel. From that's not from him. But he saw God by the Kavar Canal in Mesopotamia, right? In Babel. There was God. God's not, he wasn't, in other words, he wasn't in the Mishkan because there was none. So they had to figure out God has to be portable or universal, which means wherever we go, we find God. And so the concept of God was extended so that the Beit Adonai, which here I think originally was focused on very narrowly Eretz Yisrael and the temple in particular, as many, Zion, remember, is all over the place in the Psalms. Okay, the Psalms are intensely Zionistic. That's what they were thinking. But the post-biblical or late biblical traditions began to expand this. I think of Daniel, right? That's very late. But there too, he's in Babel, and he's got all these visions, and right? And these guys are sent into the fire, but they don't burn because God's with them. Look at the book of Daniel, and they prophesy. He's got these end of day prophecies, and presumably he's living in Babel. So it expands, and consequently, what was the house of God? Ultimately, you could say the entire earth became the house of God, and then some, because God's home did not end at the boundaries of the earth. There was this whole other area where there was a God, where God was, right? So the point is, the Midrash did an awful lot to take these ancient concepts and expand them to meet the needs of people and to really express what people were believing or needed to believe once they spread out throughout the world. And that whole process of Midrash, in a sense, kept Judaism alive. Really? Halakha too. The whole invention of the Siddur was a result of the absence of a temple.
Yeah.
The collection of prayer, the fixing of prayer takes place formally in the generation, right? According to the Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel was the guy who fixed the Amidah. And he was around 90 of the Common Era. And he says, you say 18 blessings every day. Okay? So that's part of the process. That did not exist beforehand. There was some form of prayer, we know, but it was never formalized as a legitimate liturgical, worshipful way to approach God.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbamls.org.